Okay, so we're back, and this is my favorite part, to be honest. It's the lighting part. So this is the part that allows us to be like creative and try different moods and different lighting setups. And as you see here, I have my scene open after we're done with like the blocking, modeling, cape bashing, texturing. We've added like very generic lighting, such as the sunlight, to give us a generic idea how our scene is going to look like. But this is the part where we are allowed to be like creative and test out like different lighting modes. So as you can see here, nothing fancy. It's just the same scene we've created. So let's explore our lighting setup and see how we can get creative. So I'll head back to my camera, maybe move a little bit closer, something like this. So I have like my subject, my background, my robot, my human figure, all that stuff. And the first thing I love to do is I go to Option, Update Check, and uncheck my camera. What this allows me is I can navigate out of my camera, but my live viewer inside of Octane remains standing still. So the first thing I will have to do is turn off my sunlight and add an HDRI. And with this HDRI, I like to keep it on black. And as you can see here, that I've made sure that these like headlights of the robot are just like materials. So later on in the post-production process, I'll be using some special techniques to add like these volumetric lights coming out, especially out of like these headlights part, because doing it inside Octane can be a little bit slow. So there are like some nice cheats that allow us to add these like volumetric lights coming from these sources of light in post without having like spending a lot of time rendering and like struggling with like slow render times. So as you can see here, some of the lights comes with like ambient lighting from like these light sources from like these sci-fi sci-fi products that we have from Kit Bash, such as like this piece, maybe this piece too. But yeah, let's talk about lighting a little bit. So what I love to do is lighting my main subject, which is selecting this mech part, and then I type target area light. What does this do is creating rectangular source of light, as you can see, but it has a target tag that is targeted to our mech, so it allows us to move our source of light, as you can see here, without while keeping focus on our mech. So as you can see here, we're creating some nice looks. I can increase the light size, move it a little bit backwards. Select my light tag, play with the temperature a little bit. So decreasing the slider makes it towards the warm colors or to the reds. Increasing the slider makes it comes a little bit to the cold colors. And let's say if I want to make specific colors, then I'll leave this on neutral and I'll click use light color. Then I'll select my main light, and now I can try different light variations. Okay, to make sure we have like proper lighting setup or like proper rendering setup, we need to have like some very generic settings I mostly use most of the times. So let's head back to my main camera. I'll go into the OctaneRender settings. And as you can see here, I have my kernels, which is like my render settings. I have it selected to path tracing. By default, it can be direct lighting, and direct lighting is a little bit like inaccurate or doesn't have as much as like ray tracing technology, which gives better render results. So I'll make sure it's selected to path tracing, and I'll maybe set the samples to something like 1024 for the time being until I move with like final production. The diffuse depth, I like to set it to 8, specular 8, scatter 8, GI clamp. By default, it's, I think Octane has it like on 1 million or something. I like to keep it low because it increases like the speed of rendering time. It makes it a little bit faster. So I love to keep the GI clamp at 1, and then I head back into my camera. Also, there are like some settings. Let me check it back. I like to keep my camera, enable the camera imager. I like to increase highlight compression and hot pixel removal. I love to keep it around 0.5. And I usually load some LUTs, which gives me like an instant nice cool color grading, or like, because if it's like 0, you can see it's a little bit flat. I like to have like this cinematic look, so sometimes I tend to add some LUTs. I have some LUT packs. This pack is by Trying Digital. It's inspired by the movie The Matrix. So as you can see here, if we do like a compare render buffer, this is without the LUT. It looks a little bit neutral, but this is with the LUT. As you can see, it's a little bit cinematic, inspired with like the Matrix mood. So yeah, these are like maybe the basic settings I love to create in order to start my lighting process. Okay, so I'll uncheck my camera back again, navigate out of my camera, and if you could see, I have a group that has a couple of lights, which are our main lights, and most of them are like target lights, as you can see. All of them are targeted to my mech because I want to create like this contrast, focus, and drag my eyes or like the viewer's attention towards only the mech, as you can see here, and create a silhouette for my main character. So I have like this contrasty cinematic look whenever you're lighting. You don't want to have like all your subjects lit. You usually want to hide some stuff from the lights and allow some stuff to be like visible by the light. So it creates a cinematic nice look. Okay, so I'll delete this light and start exploring the old lights that I've created to see this look. So I'll unhide this group. And if you can see, I have my main light here. It's just like this like really huge area light that is coming from the background. As you can see, it's coming either also behind the factory that we created. So it gives this like nice rim light feeling that's coming behind the background and coming behind the buildings or like the objects, the factory items, factory 3D models we've created. So it's lighting the background. So, and also it's lighting our mech. So as you can see, if we compared our render buffer, let's delete this light. So as you can see, it's lighting a lot inside our scene. Also, we have another light that I made sure it's coming really close from behind, as you can see here. And the intensity is set here to 100%, and the intensity here is set to 100%. And both of them are like on the cold side temperature, 1200 K, or like 12,000 Kelvin. So as you can see, this light is like really interesting. Let me do like a quick store render buffer. So this like extra light that's coming from the side. As you can see, this side is a little bit dark, so I want to like have some interesting highlights that's coming from also this side. So I added this extra light. So before and after, before and after. And also I'm keeping the same rule, which is keeping my main subject as a silhouette, because this is what gives the more cinematic feeling. Now imagine if we had a special light also for our character. It's not gonna look as cinematic as you'd expect it to be because everything is lit right now. So we'll delete this light. And then we have a very interesting third light that wouldn't behave as you expect. It's this light. This light is coming from the top, which, as you can see here, it's like really huge, really large. And at the same time, it's highlighting like the helmet, the shoulders, the torso, or like the chest area, which keeps it like really interesting. And the intensity, as you see here, it's set to 10 instead of 100, because as you see, like 100 is like super intense and I don't want to be like to be super bright. So I kept it on 10. I increased the samples of the light, which makes it render a little bit faster. But the trick about this light is that I used a different light pass ID for it. Now let's see what does light pass IDs do specifically inside Octane, because like they're really powerful and interesting. So if I set it by default to 1, because all lights you create inside Octane has a default light pass to 1. If I default this one to 1, you'd see that it's lighting the whole scene. And it's increasing the overall brightness and it's ruining our contrast and making the scene look a little bit flat. But what I wanted to do is I want this top light specifically to affect my robot. So I can do that with light passes ID. So I can easily select my mech and add something called an object tag. Now, so let's delete it and re-add it again. So I'll create an object tag. As you can see, I added my object tag inside Octane, so it's only affecting this mech. And what we will do then is we'll go inside the object layer. There's something called use light pass mark. I'll enable it, and as you can see here, it has numbers from 1 to 8, and this is, I think, specular, and this is emission, as I believe. So we have numbers from 1 to 8. So by default, they're all checked from 1 to 8. Now this means that this object is going to be affected by all light sources numbered from 1 to 8. So let's do like some nice interesting trick. I'll increase the intensity of this light so it's a little bit obvious. Make the temperature extremely red. And if I go inside my mech and select the object tag and I uncheck light pass ID 2, look what happens. I think it needs like a quick refresh. Oh, and we need to select the light to 2. Oh, okay. So I had to reset and click on the reset my render inside of Octane again so it works. So let's do like a quick recap. So I have my light. I made it into light pass ID 2. And then I added my object tag. And then I unchecked number 2, which means that This light that is numbered with 2, it's gonna not affect any object tag that has this light excluded from. So what I made Octane do is I made my mech exclude this light and make it affect anything else except any object that has an object tag which has the number excluded from it. Okay, so we want to do the inverse of this process. So in order to do the inverse of this process, we'll hit into the render settings, and there's something called light linking invert. And if I check number 2, what happens now is we made this light, which is numbered by number 2 and has this mech, do the inverse of what we did before. And I think this is looking cool too. You can have like this nice, interesting, cool effect, and this light won't affect anything else inside your scene. So let's undo and hit back to our previous settings. So yeah, so as you can see here, quickly undoing. Okay, so as you can see here, we've managed to, let's refresh. Exactly, specifically. So we've managed to make this light affect only the mech and highlight the top part of this scene. So it gives it a more like nice dramatic cinematic look. Okay, so I think we're done with the lighting part. Hope you've enjoyed. We'll move forward the next step with preparing our render settings and how to properly export our scene. It's going to be a little bit technical, so I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you didn't subscribe, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.